From the Edge Media Studios in downtown Indianapolis, this is Indiana Issues. Here's your host, Abdul-Hakim Shabazz.
Hello, and welcome to Indiana Issues. I'm Abdul-Hakim Shabazz, the editor and publisher of IndyPolitics.org. Well, Democrats meet in Ohio for another debate. Another Democrat gets to the race for governor, and mayoral elections just right around the corner as well. And those are just a few of the topics we'll be discussing with our panel today. Our panel includes our good friend, Libertarian Mark Rutherford. Mark, thank you for being with us.
Glad to be here.
Democrat Adam Kirsch, Wabash man. Adam, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Mark's a Wabash man, too, but Adam's a more recent Wabash man. Our good friend Eric Berman, Network Indiana and WIBC Radio. Eric, thank you for being with us.
Go Big Red.
And her second appearance on our program with our panel, April Gregory, Conservative. April, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, so folks, let's start with a big news item as we record this program for this week. 12 Democrats running for president took to the stage in Ohio. Elizabeth Warren, a lot of the target of those attacks, but in sort of the post-debate analysis, looks like South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg maybe is picking up some steam and being extremely competitive in some of the latest polling. Adam, these are Democrats. I'll start with you and your people.
Well, I have to really rely on the post-debate coverage because I actually didn't watch. I'm trying to teach the Democratic primary the way most of the Democratic primary voters will, and not pay much attention to it until January. I think that's right. I think Pete and Senator Klobuchar had good 24 hours coming out. Both raised million plus, and that's a good thing. But other than that, I think if you're not being talked about and as a positive after the debate, that's a net loss for you. So I don't think there was a whole lot of movement.
Eric.
Pete Buttigieg clearly got what he needed out of this debate. What's impressed me about the Buttigieg campaign, and the debate is just the next phase in this, is he's had a clear strategy for how he was going to get from announcement day to Iowa and beyond. It seems like most of the candidates just came in and said, okay, we're going to go in, we're going to win this thing. Buttigieg had a step one, do every interview all the way down to Pete the Planner, get your name out there so people know who you are. Step two, start just getting out and meeting people in Iowa and New Hampshire, and only now are we seeing, okay, now we're going to start trying to draw the contrast with Elizabeth Warren, with Bernie Sanders, with Beto O'Rourke. It's been an outstanding tactical campaign. Whether it's enough to do what he needs to do, we'll find out. But it shows a recognition of the challenges and what the path is, if a path exists.
Something I thought was interesting, April, in the debate was sort of Pete Buttigieg sort of positioned himself as, hey, if you're kind of a more moderate Democrat and you're not quite sold on, Joe Biden, or maybe Joe's maybe disappointed you a little bit, you're not quite sure, hey, I'm your perfect number two. Think of me as your next reasonable alternative.
Right, and I think that's really what he has going for him. When you look at the whole field, there's only a couple that can kind of, maybe two or three, that can play that moderate game. And the problem is, of course, in the primary, it's going to be more liberal voters. However, someone like a Warren, who's going to be way too left in a general, I mean, I don't think she can beat Trump personally. So I think if they're smart, they'll start looking at those instead of her being in the top place. We'll see how that changes.
Are we starting to see, Mark, maybe at the end of this year, maybe sort of a shift in the dynamics of we got everybody sort of cannibalizing the more far left wing of the Democratic Party, that here are all these moderates and centrists over here, just waiting to be spoken to, that it may not be a majority, but maybe a plurality.
Right. I mean, and Adam hit it. I don't think people are really paying attention that closely, except for the people that matter, which are the people that are going to give the biggest support later. And so what I'm seeing happening is what I've seen for a long time is that Mayor Pete is the one I think is the most likely of all the candidates who can beat Trump. I know that we've got all this stuff with everything going on about Trump or whatever, but if you've ever been involved with the business cycle with him, he has this amazing ability to survive and all types of things. But people are beginning to see that Mayor Pete has the ability, because he is a little bit more moderate in the Democratic stream of things, and people are beginning to see that, and so he's beginning to get the traction that he needs. Biden kind of didn't do much there. He was kind of neutral, so that was a big loss to him. Warren did actually, from the polling, quite well. I mean, everybody was after her. But I do think that she's too left for the general population of the United States. And here's what I see is that it's not surprising that Mayor Pete is a South Bend mayor. Mayors have to be practical. It's just the nature of the job. If they go too far one or the other, there's certain exceptions in cities, but for the most part, you got to do what needs to be done in the city, and that's practical, and it's beginning to show through.
Is this one of those cases, Adam, where if you're somebody like South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg, at least early on, I don't have to win, I just have to win enough to either place first, second, or third, either New Hampshire, Iowa, or South Carolina?
I think that's right. I also think we're naturally going to. We've already seen this field start to contract. We will see it continue to contract. And the other one I was sitting here thinking about, we're talking about debate performances and how it's going to affect the general, and was trying to move my head back 4 years and think about how we were talking about the Republican presidential primary in October of 2015. And well, Donald Trump is over now. It's dead in the water. And I just think we don't know. I think one of the top 4 or 5 candidates is going to be the nominee. But other than that, I'm not confident very much.
If you are in the Trump universe, April, which Democrat are you worried most about? Sort of going head to head.
Right. So I've maintained, at this point, I don't think Biden's going to be able to pull it off. I think he's becoming a little bit too susceptible to his history. I personally have thought that Pete Buttigieg he's smart enough, and he can, as you've mentioned, he's laying the ground very well, and especially in Iowa, where he has the most field offices and he has over 100 staff. And now after the debate, he is in third place so far in Iowa in the polls. So he has been my biggest concern as far as someone that could possibly beat Trump. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think Tulsi Gabbard could be moderate enough to beat Trump. However, I don't know if she can pull herself up far enough to be one of those contenders that makes some noise.
Eric, let me get your thoughts on this before we jump to our next topic.
I emphasize this every time this comes up, and it's worth repeating as many times as necessary. Iowa is a different animal. If you don't get 15% of the vote, you don't get any delegates. That's true of all the Democratic primaries and caucuses. But in Iowa, if your guy isn't getting 15%, you get to move over and caucus with the group that is. And so you've got to be near the top of the group to come out of Iowa. Normally that means, the cliche is you've got first class ticket out of Iowa, business class, and coach. 3 candidates come out.
Somebody gets stuck in their baggage.
You're going to have some folks stuck in baggage, but they're going to be a dead man walking. I do, however, think you're going to have 4 coming out because you've got a strange dynamic where you've got 2 candidates in Biden and Sanders who really can't drop below that 15% unless they absolutely implode. They're going to have support. They're going to be in as long as they want to be. But they both have problems in terms of growing their support, especially Bernie Sanders, because he's got Elizabeth Warren in his way. So the 2 of them are going to be in. Elizabeth Warren, it seems clear, is going to be in. And the fight is really for that 4th ticket, and Pete Buttigieg has the inside track.
You are watching Indiana Issues, coming to you from the Edge Media Studios in downtown Indianapolis. I'm your host, Abdul-Hakim, the editor and publisher of IndyPolitics.org. Our panel today of political prognosticators and pundits are Libertarian Mark Rutherford, Democrat Adam Kirsch, Eric Berman of 93 WIBC in Indianapolis and Network Indiana, and conservative April Gregory. Want to change gears a little bit. Some news in the race for governor. New candidate entering the race. Had an exploratory committee for a while. State Senator Eddie Melton from up in the Gary area. And something I thought was really interesting about Senator Melton's announcement was who he was with, which was Republican outgoing superintendent of public instruction, Jennifer McCormick. Eric, let me start with you. Does this raise eyebrows and change the whole dynamics of a possible governor's race next year?
Well, I don't know how much it changes the dynamics. It definitely raises some eyebrows. It gives Eddie Melton a way into the campaign. He's able to get a twofer. I've got support from Republicans, and I'm the education candidate. It gives him a way to position himself on both of those. How far that carries him, again, you've got to get through a Democratic primary first. I think a lot of this is going to be driven, honestly, by who raises the most money. Money is not determinative, but obviously it helps. And in this race in particular, you've got 3 candidates, none of whom is that well known. And the ability to get their name out and raise some money to get their name out, I think is going to matter more in the short term than Jennifer McCormick.
Adam, let me ask you. Obviously, Senator Melton, well known in the Gary area, also former member of the State Board of Education. How does he compare to Dr. Woody Myers or Josh Owens, sort of tech CEO?
Well, I think in the disclosure, I'm helping Josh Owens' campaign. I think the Democrats are very fortunate right now to have 3 strong and diverse candidates in both actually diverse. The first 2 African American, Dr. Myers or Senator Melton were nominated, it'd be the first African-American nominee. If Josh were nominated, it'd be the first openly gay nominee. But I think there's some interesting contrasts and similarities and differences between the field, and that is, I think, good. I think Indiana Democrats have shied away from primaries, and I think there's some good things to them, including really getting out to test drive these candidates as candidates on a statewide basis.
April?
So I obviously it's a very interesting endorsement, or not endorsement even, but just to be there with him. But at the same time, I don't think it's really going to project him to be the education candidate. And I don't know how much further down the road. I mean, if she sticks with him and does a lot of campaigning with him, it might make a difference. But, Josh Owens has already shown a lot of his education policy, and he's really going to be focusing on that. I mean, he wants to raise the minimum salary of teachers. He wants to get rid of the voucher program. So he already has these ideas in place. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be Melton with the help of McCormick possibly being the education candidate, and ultimately it still has to play out, but if the teachers union endorses, that's going to be the bigger factor.
Does Jennifer McCormick, Mark, let me ask you, What does she bring to the table? Obviously, things have been on shaky grounds with the Republican establishment anyway, so does this really move the needle all that much? I mean, unlike a Glenda Ritz, who sort of had the teachers union, sort of rode that wave of discontent against Tony Bennett, Jennifer McCormick's a totally different creature.
It is, but McCormick to me is representing what I am seeing, and a lot of other people are beginning to see, is that we're going through a major political realignment, in my opinion, both nationally in the state of Indiana. And McCormick, to me, kind of represents Republican women who are more moderate, and I think they're starting to go a different direction. What direction that is, I can guess. I've got my opinion, but I don't know. I will know in 10 years, obviously. So that's what I see is happening. And it's just not from McCormick doing it, because there's always been lone wolves from all the parties before where they make something and they do something like that. But I'm hearing more and more people talking, women Republicans, and they seem a little lost right now. Trump may not be their cup of tea, but why isn't Holcomb their cup of tea? Why is that starting to happen? Because I think the gubernatorial race is Holcomb's to lose, in my opinion, still is. But we're seeing some shifting going on. And the candidates for the Democrats, I mean, I'm pretty impressed, the quality of them, because Holcomb, I think, is going to be hard to beat. But there's a lot of reasons, especially for Melton and Owen to win, that could lead to other things that help the Democratic Party and themselves in their careers.
I want to piggyback on that, Eric, on two things that kind of popped out. Morning Consult put out some polling data as we recorded this program the morning of, basically showing Governor Holcomb 51% approval, maybe 23% disapproval. Also, the state GOP announcing this week that, hey, Governor Holcomb's got 9,000 certified signatures ready to go on the ballot. What does this translate into?
It translates into exactly what Mark said. He's in very good position. It's his race to lose. It's a long way to the election, Vargas's law, but it's his race to lose. He's got 13 months. That poll shows about 26% who still don't know who Eric Holcomb is, but that's a house effect with the Morning Consult poll. That happens with every statewide office holder in Indiana. To the fact that he's above 50%, even with people who aren't sure who he is, puts him in very good position. I want to go back to the other thing Mark said, because I think he's really onto something. Not only Dr. McCormick, but in the mayor's race, you had a Republican council member, Susie Cordy, cutting an endorsement ad for Joe Hogsett, the Democrat. There's something going on there. There's lots.
Yeah, she actually hates Mike McQuillan, the city minority leader.
Well, that'll do it.
That's Occam's razor. That was personal.
Yeah, and for that matter, I mean, Dr. McCormick is personal in a different sense, in that she didn't come in as a politician. She was a career educator. She doesn't like what she's seen going on in education, and basically, she's in a position of, I've got nothing to lose. I'm not running for office again, as far as I know. I'm going to go out and speak my mind. She basically said it in those words when she announced she wasn't running again. So you've got a couple of people who are sort of cut free from traditional party lines. And if Democrats hope to pull an upset in the governor's race, they need a lot more like them.
Let me ask you, Adam, before we take a quick break here. How do Democrats compete with Holcomb? Like I said, Morning Consult had him at 51%. When we polled back earlier this summer in Indianapolis, we had a 60% approval rating here in Marion County. The $13 million, the 9,000 signatures. Obviously, it's a long way until November, But what is a strategy that Democrats can use to at least knock the governor down a peg or two?
Well, first of all, let's dispense with the notion that getting the signatures when you've fully subsumed the Republican Party into your campaign apparatus is an accomplishment. I mean, they've been collecting petitions for months with the entire apparatus of the Republican Party pulling behind them. Great, it's good, it's nice that they moved on, but it doesn't, to me, demonstrate any particular organizational success. Secondly, 51% approval is fine. But it's not good. It's soft. He's had 3 years as governor, and quite frankly, not really a great deal of opposition. He's put millions into roads. The economy's at 3.2% unemployment. And for whatever reason, he's got a hard ceiling at about 51, 52, 53. And Eric's right. There's been Morning Consult has shown higher or lower name ID for statewide office holders in Indiana than some other states. But I don't know that that's a House effect so much as it is the lack of the Republican office holders in Indiana to really get out there and be known. I mean, when you go back and look at an Evan Bayh approval or even a Richard Lugar approval, they had name IDs in the 90s and at the time, and Eric Holcomb doesn't. I think Eric Holcomb is fundamentally soft. I think the Hoosiers like him, but they do not love him. There's very little deep-seated affection for the governor. And I think Democrats beat Eric Holcomb by saying essentially that. They're saying, after 16 years, it's time to weed this garden again, as Mitch Daniels did. I think there's more we can do. I think Eric Holcomb's content to be a caretaker governor, and Hoosiers want more. They want to strive more. They want to achieve more, and that's what I think you're seeing from the Democratic candidates for governor.
Well, let me throw April here real quick before we break. April, do the Hoosiers like Eric Holcomb? Do they love Eric Holcomb, or is he just a friend with benefits? And you and I know each other long enough that we can say this stuff to each other.
But we don't have a beer in front of us. No, I think they like him well enough that he'll be able to win still comfortably. And look at these roads getting fixed. That's a huge deal. The state has focused and put so much money into education, and I think that they like him well enough. He'll be fine.
You are watching Indiana Issues, coming to you from the Edge Media Studios in downtown Indianapolis. We're going to take ourselves a quick break. When we come back, we got lots of mayor's races taking place across Indiana, and also, is anybody not running in the 5th Congressional District? We'll ask that question as well. You're watching Indiana Issues. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Indiana Issues. I'm Abdul-Hakim Shabazz, the editor and publisher of IndyPolitics.org. Our guests today, our political panel, Libertarian Mark Rutherford, Democrat Adam Kirsch, Eric Berman, political reporter at Network Indiana 93 WIBC, and conservative commentator April Gregory. The race to replace Susan Brooks continues to make some changes. Republican Steve Braun stepping out of the race, citing health reasons, but 3 new faces have gotten in. Former BMV Commissioner Ken Abernathy, also businesswoman Beth Henderson, and Zionsville physician Dr. Chuck Dietzen. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, Christina Hale raising more than $325,000 in cash, more than any other Democratic candidate in that whole thing. Mark, your assessment of the 5th?
Well, it's still too early to tell who the candidates would be. Christina Hale hit a home run with her fundraising, so that makes her clearly a clear front runner. And the people who are running against her so far announced, I don't think have the capacity to compete with that. She's got organizational skills. She's got a great resume. So she's heading towards getting the nomination for the Democrats, in my opinion. Republican, it's different. I look at all of them, and I'm not very excited about any of them, although you have Abernathy and Kelly Mitchell, who have good resumes when it comes to being, working for the state of Indiana or for state treasurer for Mitchell. But none of them really excite me yet because they're not getting out there. But it's kind of early. I mean, they may be thinking, well, it's the very Republican district. We'll have a lot of insiders make this election. They may be working those very hard. But I see the district changing a little bit. I walked a lot of the 5th District when I ran for Secretary of State for the Libertarian Party last year, and we're seeing signs of that there's beginning to get a Democratic Party there, and they need to be taken seriously. And I also see some splits happening in the Republican Party there. I mean, we've got two-party system in some cities there. They just happen to call each other Republican.
Well, actually, I'd say in some parts of Hamilton County, it's more like a 5-party system.
Yes, it is. It is. Mm-hmm.
April, can Republicans take Hamilton County for granted? Like I said, with changing demographics, with some of the things we saw in 2018, and the fact also in 2016, Donald Trump was actually in Hamilton County the lowest vote getter of anybody who sort of on that countywide ballot.
Right. So Hamilton County is going to be where the bulk of those votes come from in the 5th District race. So, yeah, they have to take it seriously. And, Trump did carry the whole district by 12 in 2016. But, in Hamilton County, that's a different beast. And so a lot of it's going to depend, I think, on the tide of what's going on in Washington. I mean, how Trump's doing, how Pelosi is projecting as leading the House. Do the Republicans overall in the nation want to flip the House aggressively, like maybe we saw in a 2010 or whatever? So it depends how. I think Washington's going to play a little bit into that race because it is so split, Republican, Democrat, with so many fiscal conservatives, but more moderately liberal in that district.
Adam, I'm going to ask you the most difficult question of the day. Can a Democrat win the 5th District?
Absolutely. A Democrat not only can, a Democrat will win the 5th District.
I figured you say on the first part. I wasn't quite sure about that. I was about to make sure on the second part.
No, I mean, the fact is the 5th District is a district that's essentially replicated around the country, and they have overwhelmingly been moving towards Democrats. We won, Democrats won the majority in 2018 on suburban districts similar to the 5th. Joe Donnelly carried the 5th. Joe Donnelly carried Hamilton County. Republicans in this day and age do not have the lockstep of the college-educated suburban voter any longer. There's been a corollary slough-off of Democrats, and that's what you're seeing. So you're seeing some parts of the district that are moving away from the Democrats. But to April's point, Hamilton County is about 45-50% of the district. Add in the Marion County portion, and you're at almost 75% of the district. That's where this race is going to be decided. And Christina Hale flipped a red seat in the Marion County portion of that seat. And J.D. Ford won in that district. Melanie Wrights won in that district. You're seeing Democrats make inroads in that district, both district-wide, as Senator Donnelly did, and then below that level.
Eric, how do you think Donald Trump plays, particularly the Republican primary?
Badly, but that may not be so badly that it opens it up for the Democrats to win it. If there's going to be a competitive House race in Indiana, that will be it for all the reasons that everyone else has discussed. It's a suburban district. We saw a lot of districts like it flip. Dee Thornton didn't have much of a campaign, didn't have much fundraising last time out. Democrats are going to put resources into it this time. Donald Trump probably will be a drag on the ticket in Hamilton County and also the Boone County part of that district. But it's a big district. That may be 3/4 of the vote. But, Joe Donnelly carried Hamilton County. I don't notice him in the Senate because this is replicated in 8 other districts. You had Mike Braun rolling up huge margins in the smaller, more rural counties. And you've got votes coming out of Madison and Tipton and Howard. Susan Brooks won all those counties by a lot. And there's a lot of ground that a Democratic candidate is going to have to make up.
We got 6 more minutes left in the program. You're watching Indiana Issues. I'm Abdul-Hakim, the editor and publisher of IndyPolitics.org. Libertarian Mark Rutherford, Democrat Adam Kirsch, Eric Berman of 93 WIBC Network Indiana, and also conservative commentator April Gregory. Indiana voters go to the polls in a couple of weeks to choose mayor, city councils across the state. 2 questions. A, will anybody show up, as municipal elections tend to be much lower turnout, and could that possibly translate into some different results? April, we'll start with you.
I think in different cities around the state, you have different moods of the voter. In Kokomo, the electorate's very energized for the Republican candidate Tyler Moore, and he should run away with that pretty handily as long as he, his support doesn't get complacent and comfortable with his sizable lead that they don't show up. But I think he is they're energized for him to take that seat that's open right now. In Fort Wayne, it's going to be definitely different there, where Fort Wayne is pretty comfortable under who'd be running for his four-term Mayor Tom Henry, but you are seeing things like crime up in Fort Wayne and wages kind of down and stagnant. So a lot of people in Fort Wayne are ready for a change. So it just kind of depends up there, I think, who gets out the vote better. And then Indianapolis.
Indianapolis.
I
can answer that one. Mark, you hear anything interesting with the different mayoral races in around?
Really, I'm not seeing an awful lot. I mean, I observe Kokomo too. The Republican candidates just going gangbusters there. They better just keep pressing it in order to win for sure, because they're doing a great job up there from that standpoint. I don't see a lot of it, but Westfield is something that may be a little bit of a sleeper. It may be a long shot, but we've got the Republican incumbent, we've got the Libertarian candidate. Libertarian candidate's getting a lot of support from different coalitions there. And Westfield is where the Republican primary, a lot of incumbents lost. So there's a lot of upsettedness there. A lot of it's, I think, based fiscally, but it's even deeper than that. It's about how they apply zoning laws, how they apply the growth of Westfield. And so, it's always a long shot when the Libertarian's running, but I'm very interested to see what it will be. And it may send a message, even if it's not a victory, by the number of people who vote for the Libertarian, because he's very fiscally responsible, and he wants to help Westfield to grow, and that's what he's talking about, and it seems to be resonating with a lot of groups. But you never know in that thing where people say, yeah, I like you, but whether they vote for you or not, you just don't know.
Adam, is there any race in particular that has piqued your curiosity?
I think both Portage and Valparaiso are interesting. Both actually are somewhat similar to the 5th District we were talking. They're cities, but they tend to be a bit more suburban in nature, and both present good opportunities for Democrats.
Eric?
Watching Muncie and Anderson very closely, maybe Anderson especially. That was had a Republican mayor 4 years ago. He was defeated by the current mayor, Thomas Broderick. Republicans want that back. That was an area that went for Donald Trump heavily in the 2016 election. We'll see how much that pendulum has swung back there.
One race I'm looking at in particular is the race actually for mayor of Lawrence, because the people of Lawrence have not elected the same mayor in how many years?
Well, not since Tom
I
Schneider.
feel like Anderson's flipped back and forth for a couple cycles now, too.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see whether the Democrat Jamar Cobb-Denard can beat Steve Collier, seeing how Lawrence has, for some reason, you're 4 and done. And so it just shows up who's on that neck of the woods. Before we close up shop here, have our local elections, just real quickly here, been kind of dominated by the national cycle and sort of hard for mayoral candidates to break through, or have you noticed any mayors who found a particular niche to reach the voters?
No, I don't think so. I think what you said in your introduction sums it up. It's a municipal election. People don't turn out unless there's something they're excited about in the local community, and that will happen in certain communities. We haven't really seen that in the Indianapolis race. We're seeing it in a way in Kokomo. But for the most part, 7 of the 10 largest cities in Indiana, the mayor is unopposed. The race is already over. 9 of the top 14. So there's a lot of lack of interest, and I don't really think it's driven by the national scene at all.
All right. Well, now it's time for the part of our program we do our predictions and prognostications, where we ask our panel to look in the political ether and see what they see in the future. So, Mark, we'll start with you.
The prediction I have is that we are under a political realignment, which I referred to earlier, and I don't know where it's going. But I'm seeing that moderate Republican women are going to start voting Democrat and maybe even going elsewhere. And the political parties are going to change a lot. So I'm really looking forward to this municipal election and driving into it to see how that develops and where it's going. If you study history, there's always every 20, 30, 40 years. It seems like our politics in the United States realigns, and I think we're in that period right now.
All right. Adam?
Let's see. Politically, Democrats will hold the Indianapolis mayor's race. Bold.
Big shot.
Bold prediction.
Nice go on a limb there, buddy.
Not so much prediction, more what I'm watching, and that's the city council races up in Hamilton County. I think this sort of ties together all the topics we've been looking at. The Democrats like their odds of flipping a couple here and there. They're trying to get an at-large seat in Fishers and in Noblesville. They're running district races in Carmel. I'm skeptical. I've seen this movie before, but if you do see one or more of those flip, that's going to be a big sign that realignment Mark's talking about is coming.
April?
Well, I'm going to go a little bit national, and I'm going to say that we'll probably see another week of impeachment frenzy, and it will go nowhere.
Also bold.
Okay, then I'll be the one who makes the bold prediction. I would not be surprised if Zionville actually elects a Democrat for mayor. That is my bold prediction. Our guests today have been Libertarian Mark Rutherford, Adam Kirsch, Democrat, Eric Berman of 93 WIBC Network Indiana, and April Gregory, conservative commentator. Thank you all very much for being with us. Thank our friends at Edge Media Studios. I'm Abdul-Hakim Shabazz. We'll talk to you next time on Indiana Issues.